Schools Chancellor Melissa Aviles-Ramos finds solutions to problems she discovered on a citywide listening tour. And the boys are back to talk politics. And believe me, there's a whole lot to sort out this week. The Point starts right now. I'm joined by New York City Schools Chancellor Melissa Aviles-Ramos. Now, you have been on a listening tour.
Yes.
And you went all around the city and you decided that some things needed to be changed and fixed. Yes. First of all, you're going to do a program involving parental connectors. Tell me about that.
I'm so excited. So the listening tour really came from a place of knowing that our families and our students always want to be heard at a central level, right? They have relationships with their principals and with their teachers and superintendents, but how often do they get to actually speak directly to the chancellor and her team? And so as a new chancellor, I wanted to take that opportunity. And it was great. We heard from over 1,000 families, kids, teachers across the system. And what really resonated is a need to focus on mental health, safety, expand services in the mental health area, and how to empower our families more.
So were there surprises when you were in this listening tour?
You know, I suspected these things would come up, but I think what was a bit of a surprise or an eye-opener was when students actually stood up and said, love our social workers, love our counselors, but we need more. It's been a really big challenge to come back from the pandemic, and we just need more support. We're worried about ourselves, we're worried about our peers, and to hear a young person stand up in an auditorium of 100 people and to advocate for themselves, it was a moment of pride. I was like, wow, look at these incredible young people. But then you also say to yourself, this is really sad, and as the leader of the school system, I have to do more.
So what are you going to do about it?
That's a great question. NYCPS Cares is the cornerstone initiative that we are launching in response to what we heard on the listening tour. And I've tried to be very clear with everyone. This is not to take anything away from NYC Reads and Solves, because these incredible instructional initiatives that were designed under Chancellor Banks, and perhaps I'm a little biased because I was one of the architects with him, but what we do know is that those incredible instructional initiatives have to be bolstered by these foundational pieces, making sure that families and kids, their needs are met. And so NYCPS Cares is really about doubling down on some of the trauma-informed care, some of the parent empowerment work that's working across the city, and reallocating those resources to districts that need them the most.
So what are parents going to be doing?
So they are going to be trained on the resources that exist across New York City, and we're so thankful to our sister agencies across New York City who are going to be providing training to the family connectors. And then as they learn about the different resources that exist when it comes to housing insecurity, food insecurity, domestic violence, all these different issues that parents, families face, the connectors are then positioned not only in the school but in parts of the community to share these resources with other parents.
So one of the things I was surprised when I was reading about it was that the kids thought that they were concerned about traveling to school, that they were worried about the trip to school. Tell me about that.
Well, again, we do a lot to work in partnership with NYPD, school safety, to make sure that safety is a priority for all of us. But things sometimes happen on the way to and from school. And so young people are saying, how can you extend the work that you do in safety into the community? And so we're going to continue our great partnership with NYPD and with our parents and really think about the ways that we can strengthen safe passage for our young people.
So do they talk about bullying? I know that there's been an increase in bullying. It's gone up from about 35% of people complaining about online bullying last year to about 43% this year. Are you doing anything about that?
Well, that's also part of NYCPS Cares, and this is why we're so excited about the through line across NYCPS Cares is that our stakeholders are taking control of the messaging and the response. So our parents, our family connectors are working with families to get them the resources they need, and our young people are actually talking to other young people about the reasons for bullying. What happens when you're bullied? Why do you bully? What are the triggers? And then how can using their own language through social media and through PSAs, how can they spread the message on why you shouldn't be bullying and what to do if you are bullied? We know that as adults, telling kids, don't bully each other, doesn't really work. But young people working together, we know that they get the message across and there's impact.
So basically you're going to have kids counsel other kids about how not to bully? And
design messaging and resources around anti-bullying and what happens if you are bullied. What do you do? How do you report it? How do you recover from it?
Is there a reporting process in the school system?
Well, what we're doing is meeting with the young people and really designing, based on their ideas, what the campaign looks like. This has already started in some schools, too, and so we're also collecting some of the best practices. That's why we had a school from the Bronx at the announcement yesterday, Escape the Vape. They gave me an amazing shirt. I was walking around with it.
Well, let's talk about Save the Vape. Why are you doing an anti-vaping campaign?
That also came up in the listening tour. So bullying and vaping were two big concerns, and a lot of it came from the students themselves. And they're really concerned. Some of the student athletes were saying, we see our peers, they're vaping. We want to make sure that we are educating each other on why vaping is bad for your health, why you shouldn't be doing it. And so when I met with my Chief of Safety and Prevention Services, Mark Rampersant, we said, you know what, the kids know the message, the kids know how to get the message across. Let's lean on them to do this work.
So are we talking about people who are vaping in cigarettes, or are they vaping marijuana or something else?
I think just vaping in general. We know it's bad either way, and we don't want the kids to do it.
So also I think they were talking about more support for immigrant children.
Well, first of all, everything that we do is in support of all students. And so NYCPS Cares isn't specifically for immigrant children. It's really for any child who needs it. And our immigrant children, obviously this is near and dear to my heart, having led Project Open Arms at the start of July 2022. So we make sure that with our STH, our Students in Temporary Housing Coordinators, our great partnership with DHS and with ACS, and our advocates have been incredible. AFC really telling us where we need to double down on our efforts, but we don't want to say that this is specific to one group of students. This is any student in New York City who really needs the work.
So the state budget hasn't been done yet, and there are a number of initiatives that affect the schools, including the governor's desire to have a cell phone ban bell to bell. Where do you come down on that, and are you hoping that you'll get some money from the state to help you do it?
We are absolutely hoping to get money from the state to do it. So many of our schools, because we have a chancellor's regulation that supports schools if they want to institute their own cell phone restriction, work with their school leadership teams to do that. When I was a principal, I collected cell phones. But what I've said to the state, and I've been very clear on this, is happy to comply with a mandate, but we need the funding, because when you are evacuating a school and you have to get, in my case, it was roughly 400 schools back into the hands of kids, when you got 2,000-3,000 cell phones that you have to get back to kids, it could be a little messy. So the magnetic pouches, that is our preferred method for schools, but that costs money. Those pouches are costly, and so the original number that we were given, it wasn't quite hitting the mark, so we went back. And in terms of foundation aid, we know that this formula has been outdated for a number of years, and so the foundation aid formula that was proposed.
We want about $350 million.
About $350 million, and the formula that was proposed would have caused that reduction. And so for us, it's making sure that that doesn't happen, because that money needs, that money really funds a lot of key programs here in New York City.
Chancellor, thank you for joining me. We'd have to leave it right there for now, but next we'll sort out all the shape-shifting developments in the political world. The boys are back. Political consultant O'Brien Murray and J.C. Polanco, political expert and a professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent. The big news this week was Eric Adams deciding not to run as a Democrat, but still wanting to be a Democrat and run on the independent line. What's with that?
Genius move. His days were numbered. We know he had no shot at the Democratic primary. In June, it would have been all over. Now he prolongs his opportunity to be in the press, to sit here with you, Marcia, to talk about his plans, and to see how New York City's he's doing. What if crime gets better? What if economic development gets better? It gives him that much longer to talk about
it. He said crime's already better.
I know. He'll give him all that opportunity to talk about.
It's the perception of public on his mayoralty. That's what comes down to now. You had 80 days between now and about 80 days between now and the Democratic primary, and you have over 200 days between now and the general election. That added time lets him talk about a reduction in crime, lets him talk about everything he's done in the city for the people to feel safe, anything he can do economically in the city, and anything he can do for housing where people feel it today. If you recall when he won 4 years ago, at the beginning of the election, it was all about Andrew Yang, and Andrew Yang was running all about COVID. We came out of COVID, and then it became crime, and he was a messenger on crime throughout.
And Obi, he gets to raise money. He gets an opportunity to ask for money for the next 200 days.
But wait a second, does this mean that he's no longer a lame duck? And does he have an opportunity actually to win as running an independent against a Democrat and a Republican?
He has a chance to win with less than 50% of the vote. You have the Republican nominee, probably Curtis Sliwa, unless something else changed along the way for what's going on. You have a Democratic nominee. You have a working families nominee that might be different than the Democrat. You have a situation where you could have progressive and Eric Adams and Curtis Sliwa, or a progressive Andrew Cuomo and the others.
And another independent, because Jim Walden is going to run.
The uniqueness here is, don't forget, an independent in New York does nothing as a candidate for the first time. Jim may be a great guy and so forth, but where they are on the ballot and no one knows who they are and where they are, you're talking about an incumbent mayor is a very different independent.
But does that mean that he can't win as Eric Adams can't win as an independent?
I think it's very hard for him to win, even as an incumbent. And the reason for that is the last time we saw this was with Mayor Bloomberg. Mayor Bloomberg left the GOP, ran as an independent, if you recall, but he knew that he could not win without a Republican line. So he went out there and got 3 out of the 5 Republican county committees to support him in what we call the Wilson-Pakula law, and allow for him to run as an independent with a major party line. Is the only way he was able to do it with $150 million. So it becomes a lot more difficult for an independent Mayor Adams to win without a major line.
Mayor Lindsay did it before.
That was 50 years ago. It's very different.
I don't disagree with that.
Maybe more than
what you have now is an incumbent as independent. You have a Republican running that's going to get about historically 300,000 votes. Eric Adams had 750,000 votes last time in the general. So the Democratic nominee starts off with that number, generally speaking.
It's apples and oranges.
I don't think you can say that. I don't think you say that he starts out with what he had before.
No, I didn't say it.
People have left his tent.
No, the Democratic nominee starts out with that historically.
Oh, okay.
And a chunk of them were his before. He had 289,000 of those voters for the ranked choice voting on the first ballot. So let's just...
do you think he gets those
apples and oranges? It's apples and oranges. No, it's apples and oranges. And the reason it's apples and oranges, Obi, is that you know and I know and you know that Adams and Cuomo share voters. So those voters are going to stick with Cuomo in November. How do you win as an independent without a major party line?
Tom, you're saying that Andrew Cuomo is going to definitely win the Democratic primary?
Look, are you not looking at these polls? These polls are crazy, Marsha. And to mention that now you have Mayor Adams who said, I'm no longer in it. Where do those Democrats go but to Cuomo? I think the next poll that you're going to tell us about is going to show him at around 45% going into June.
Well, we had said this on air before. One of the problems he has, though, is ranked choice voting. He does not move his numbers from first ballot until the 5th ballot on the ranked choice voting polls are out right now. So the path to victory for Adams is this. He starts off with whatever his base is going to be, and there are people out there that are still with him. Let's say that instead of 289, it's a couple 100,000. He then tips it. He then cuts into the Democratic turnout to get it in there and brings that number down to about 550. Okay, so he's at 4. Democratic 150,000 more. The Republican holds at 3. He pulled some of the Republicans. Now the issue is turnout. The turnout in the city.
He doesn't agree with
no, it's a calculus. I hear you, but it's too much.
No,
if this, you're going to lose people. People are not following. This is crazy.
No,
it's
you're
very tough.
Gain. There will be more voters in November than there have been for the past.
We have a city, Marsha. We have a city. When I was president of the Board of Elections, I saw consistently 17% to 20% turnout. You're talking about turnout that's going to be around 23, 25%. You're not going to have those numbers. The truth is this: you're going to have 4 people running. Can the mayor win? Can I get abs by November? I'm sure it's possible, but it's not likely.
You're just jealous of my abs.
Yeah,
come on.
It's not likely.
Let me ask you a question. So there's this campaign by the progressives called Dream. Do not rank evil Andrew for mayor. What role will Dream, do not rank evil Andrew for mayor, play in who's going to get what in terms of...
We see this already. We see this already.
So does that mean he's not going to be the nominee?
The Working Families Party...
the whole time. Monopoly's a game.
The Working Families Party has already gone that route and endorsed 4 candidates or 5 candidates instead of 3. But it was 3. Originally it was 3, and they upped it.
But they're not going to tell you how to rank them until near the end.
And that puts Cuomo down in number 5. The question is, can all the progressive voters coalesce around one person before Cuomo gets 50%?
It's not going to happen. And the reason,
Do you think so?
the reason,
as of today, yes, he's right. But in the next 80 days...
Wait. You should bask in this.
I love that. Thank you so much, Obi.
But in 80 days...
Say it again. You were right.
First time ever.
And 80 days out last time, we had Mayor Yang. How'd that work out?
No, but that's different. It's a whole different calculus. Let's not compare apples and oranges. But this is what's interesting. The progressives had a chance to unite behind one candidate and make that person the anti-Cuomo candidate. Could have been someone like Jumaane Williams. But to endorse 4 people, look, President Nixon said it. When you launch a campaign to defeat X, always bet on X. There's no way that you're going to defeat Andrew Cuomo in this primary, coalescing 4 people talking about, we're not going to tell you who we're going to endorse until the last minute.
Let me ask you this question. I know you want to talk. Let me ask you a question. So the number 2 in the polls is Zoran Mamdani, who's also being endorsed by the Working Families Party. And if he doesn't win in the ranked choice voting in the Democratic primary, they're holding out the possibility that they could back yet another person, a 4th person in the race. Could be Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah, of course.
Whoever comes in second.
Sure.
So if that happens, what does that do to the race?
Well, it throws the race even a little further. It makes it a lot more likely for Andrew Cuomo to still win. But with Mayor Adams doing well, Mayor Adams will do well with the Mamdani on the Working Families Party line. I'll tell you the calculus I'm going to throw your viewers out. Imagine a phone call from President Trump to the Republicans in New York City saying, I want you to support Eric Adams for mayor. Could you imagine?
That could be the kiss of death. That
could be the kiss of death for who? He's not ready. He's already not in the Democratic primary. The kiss of death for Eric Adams happened when President Trump said, I'll dismiss those charges without prejudice. That was a kiss of death. Him calling, telling the Republicans to support him. Now Mayor Adams runs as an independent with the Republican line. That's a better shot than the calculus you were presenting a little earlier.
He doesn't have the Republican line.
I know he doesn't.
I don't believe he'll have the Republican line.
Me neither.
I don't believe.
Would he want the Republican line?
I don't think it's an issue today because Curtis Sliwa would have to give it up, and you don't see Curtis giving in to anybody.
Has he submitted petitions today?
Yeah. He's in. It's Curtis. And by the way, he'd have to submit petitions and decline the nomination to do it.
I'm giving you a calculus. You gave all these calculus. I give you one calculus, and it's like, wow.
No. The point we can both agree on, for Eric Adams to win, the turnout in the general election in November has to approach 25%. 23 to 25%.
And how likely is that?
It hasn't been done. And that's the beauty of this. We have more social media. We have more TV. We have matching funds 8 to 1.
You're saying that they're going to have a bigger turnout in this mayoral election in the history of the city?
Going back decades that I've been around, it hasn't been 25%.
Many decades.
Yes, thank you, my friend. Thank you. But what I'm going with this is that turnout. You have excitement. You have Working Families on the left. You have Andrew Cuomo. You have Eric Adams. You have Curtis Sliwa. You have all this stuff. Marcia, I want the popcorn concession. I want to sit there and sell tickets to watch this event.
It's going to be good for TV, but the truth is this. The polls keep showing Andrew Cuomo running away with this thing. You know that. You know that the next poll is going to show all of those Eric Adams Democrats are going to come to Cuomo, and he's going to consolidate all of the press, all of the endorsements. Everything is happening in his favor. It's about addition, Marcia. And Andrew Cuomo has been doing nothing but adding to his campaign. And I don't see how he loses.
You will have so much news to come. You could do this show nightly and have us on the couch every night during this mayor's race. You don't have that historically. You would have 4 credible candidates running for mayor. Historically, that's never happened in New York in a November election. It'd be fantastic.
What do you think about that?
I think that'll be
15 seconds.
I think it'll be an exciting race for New York City. But one thing I really would love to see, I would love to see New York City voters come out in droves. Voter turnout has to improve, and if this is what's going to make it happen, great.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. Thank you for joining me. Why are there so many empty stores, and what should fill the space? New Yorkers are weighing in on your point. Why do you think there's so many empty storefronts around?
Because rent is so expensive.
Well, we're having a depression.
Because Trump is devastating everybody's account. I can't tell you how much my brokerage account has gone down.
Well, I think part of it is the aftermath of COVID.
The lack of recovery, a lot of business shut down.
The lockdown and people just couldn't recover.
A lot of customers was moving from here. A lot of people are moving.
The people who are landlords of commercial properties are asking absurd rents.
People are being kind of run out of business.
The new people coming in are
young. They don't, well, they make more money than I ever did, I think, but they don't want to pay. So that takes the traffic for these storefronts away.
What should be done about these vacant storefronts?
We should be working with the landlords and tell them to stop being such idiots.
To have a coherent policy that ensures that these places are rented out and commerce exists at the local level rather than over the internet.
The rent should be lowered and support emerging businesses.
So what businesses does your neighborhood need more of?
Oh, nothing. I live in Chelsea.
More food.
When I grew up here in the 1960s, you had soda fountain stores, you had these kind of local retail establishments.
A little more food.
I feel like more grocery stores.
Usual business, like a foodie stores.
Businesses of color.
More convenience type stores, nothing flashy or fancy or brand name, nothing crazy like Victoria's Secret. I don't know if I can say that.
I mean, we could use a bookstore. We could use more clothing stores. Just everything has gone out. What we do have is coffee shops.
What businesses does your neighborhood need less of?
Cosmetic stores?
Expensive coffee shops.
Would I be wrong if I said pizza places?
Well, each block seems to have a nail salon, a bank.
Less of the high rises, less of the super expensive apartments.
Do you think that the empty storefronts will fill up anytime soon?
No.
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 50-50.
I mean, one would hope.
Eventually, probably not right now, though.
No.
Yeah, but I don't know if they stay filled.
I am cautiously optimistic and hopeful that mom and pop businesses will come back, because that's what we need.